Hello, hello. Welcome to My Left Ear. I'm Carrie Freeman, and this is video 108. It's Tuesday, July 26th. This is an intuitive YouTube channel, and it is also a left-leaning YouTube channel politically. So if you're not, moderate, left-leaning, independent, you're not going to like my channel, so I'd say move on, because I've had some visitors and it's been ugly a few times. So what do? I make predictions. I have intuitions about what's going on in the politics. I'll pick out highlights of what I think is really important. And then sometimes I utilize the runes, which are, it's like instead of tarot, it's another form of consulting the oracles. Very interesting. And I teach the runes until I'm run out of them on my Patreon channel. Everything will be in the community section described. And for the Patreon members, I'm going to put, I'm doing a new Patreon tomorrow, Wednesday. Okay. If you like this, please hit subscribe and like. It makes a difference, as you know. And this is for entertainment purposes only. One more thing. Privately, I coach people most of the time through Zoom, and I call it psychic coaching, life coaching, and I also use hypnotherapy, therapeutic hypnosis. And if anybody wants to know about that or get a pricing sheet, you can also get that information from the description below and community above. All right. First thing that came to mind today, before I was going to speak with you, is the possibility that now the hearings, the 1/6 committee hearings are on a hiatus, that as a collective, we might just drop into feeling kind of empty and rudderless, because it's like a letdown. Now they're going to come back. We're going to see them in September. And I'll tell you, my left ear keeps asking if they may do a surprise hearing in August sometime. So let's wait and see that. I didn't throw runes on it. I'm just sharing this comes back over and over again. So I'm wondering if that might happen. But they are going to offer a preliminary report in September and more evidential hearings. These people aren't going to stop because it's so powerful and it's so productive. So what I say as a coach, as a therapist, is just use this time to replenish yourself, absorb all that you've learned, process, go back to healthy habits like meditating, journaling, eating properly, exercising, hydrating, these very basic things that'll get you through tough times. All right, here's the other thing I wanted to discuss with you. There are going to be a lot of books written by the sociology of what has happened over the last 5 years. And I keep coming back to this term, mass psychosis. Now, a lot of people are calling it a cult, but if you want to, I suppose you could refer to a cult as a group of people that are suffering from mass psychosis. Now, this is a very unofficial conversation I'm having with you because I'm not a PhD in sociology or psychology, but I have a lot of experience. All right, so for the sake of everybody, I looked up psychosis. So let me share with you psychosis. A severe mental disorder in which thought and emotions are so impaired that contact is lost with external reality. It definitely looks like that in terms of the extremists, pseudo-Christians, fascist Christians, Proud Boys, all of it, all of the extremists. That's what it seems to be. So now, more. Psychosis is a condition that affects the way your brain processes information. Isn't that interesting? And in a way, so is hypnosis. But hypnosis is used for good. I have to have some water. I just got a little tickle in my throat. It causes you to lose touch with reality. You might see, hear, or believe things that are not real. Like the big lie is one minor example. Psychosis is a symptom, not an illness, and it can be triggered by many things, but also extreme stress and trauma. And I'm getting to a point I'm going to make here in a minute. More from the internet. Sometimes you can lose touch with reality when you don't have a primary psychotic illness like schizophrenia or bipolar. And plenty of the people at the Capitol that got into trouble and had weapons, they didn't have bipolar and they didn't have schizophrenia. But they had probably what is called here secondary psychosis. All right, now I'm going to give you my left ear's theory. And I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm watering it down, I'm condensing it. I'm not writing a book about it because I'm not qualified, but I can talk about it and see what you think. It feels to me, like my left ear, that there was a series of events. Trump was elected, of course, and that was a shock to many people. Then chaos started to erupt with his craziness, but then COVID arrived, and it was denied by him and his people, and his administration did not take care of it, and it caused a lot of deaths that it did not have to happen. But now we've got people dying, we've got quarantine, and it's on the news, and now you have to stay home. There's a loss of jobs, a loss of money, too much time, and isolation. For some, disenfranchisement. Alone. Alone with their TV, me too, and the internet, to find dissident groups, angry groups, extremist groups, while people are vulnerable, maybe not entirely educated, and they're alone with the propaganda, and they begin to get hypnotized in the worst possible way. Because a cult is, it's sort of mass hypnosis, but it's done for the control. Control. The way I do it, it's not control. So they were hypnotized to one ideology that makes them feel better, that made them feel better, because it makes them feel like they belong to something. And one of the secrets, or not secrets, depends on who you are and the experiences you've had, of just doing therapeutic hypnosis, meaning for the good, to help you with something, you need repetition. Because that's how the brain changes, with repetition. And that's why I make a recording when I do this for people, because the repetition about anything that you want to fix goes in. But Trump's repetition, the lie, the lie, the lie, the lie, today this lie, created mass psychosis among the vulnerable. So that's the world according to my left ear. Now, here's some interesting news. Trump's polls are declining, and 2 newspapers owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is reprehensible, the editorial boards of the Washington Street Journal and the New York Post, they called out Trump, both newspapers. And one of the titles was "The President Who Stood Still." Quote, "His silence was damning." New York Post, "Donald J. Trump has proved himself to be unworthy to be the country's chief executive." And then Stuart Stevens, who is on a lot of MSNBC, He's a political consultant and strategist. He's on the Lincoln Project. He's a contributor. His reaction to Murdoch's papers, he said that he was unaware of any other newspapers rejecting Trump in this manner. So it's a big deal. You know, the owner of Fox News is allowing this to go out on his 2 newspapers. So far, according to Stevens, we're not seeing anyone willing to do the same, to assert that Trump is lost. So they remain a party of grievance, the party of Putin. And Stewart says it's not going to correct and go back to something that it was. It's just not going to happen. I agree with that. It is right now accelerating, but I just want to say it doesn't mean that it has to accelerate to that supernova place where nothing positive can happen. It doesn't have to. But we are in a race to see who can outrun extremism. Then Peter Strzok, which we've all seen a lot on MSNBC, former deputy of the FBI counterintelligence. And he was talking about that famous crazy meeting on December 18th in Trump's office, where there were crazy people who got in and nobody knows how they got in, and normal staff people at the meeting. The normal staff people discovered that the crazy people were alone with Trump, and they burst into the meeting, and then all hell broke loose. But Strzok says, you know, intelligence, counterintelligence, they won't utilize the obvious people because it's hard to get close to a Putin or a Trump or any leader. They'll end up utilizing those kind of regular people that have access. So now, the beginning of this meeting, before the staff rushes in, because they're horrified, how did Rudy and Flynn and Patrick Byrne get into the office? They are counterintelligence people of the highest order. Whether they would be labeled that or identified that, he says they are, because they have access to Trump and they're in line with him. So, and I don't know if you know this, but Patrick Byrne, the Overstock guy, he had an affair with Maria Butina, who was accused of being a Russian spy and was deported back to Russia, to a huge hero's welcome. So these people, these regular people, you know, like Sidney Cuckoo Kraken and Flynn and, you know, the Overstock guy and Rudy, they may not be that level of intelligence, but they are useful and they're being utilized to gather information because they can get close to the president. So interesting, right? And then Paul Butler, well-known attorney, talked about the missing social, the service text, the security text, that the 1/6 committee will produce a document that will roll back to win a conviction for Merrick Garland. Don't need more witnesses. Get the ball going in Garland's court. Now, I wrote this morning. I typed this, and I just want you to know, I'm looking at it thinking, I don't know if I had enough coffee when I typed this. But basically, I'm sorry about that. Paul Butler said, we don't need more witnesses, that Garland can begin. A number of people are saying that. And according to my runes, we're pretty close to this. And actually, he did begin. He did begin, but we're waiting for the big guppy. We're waiting for Trump. We're waiting for that get, okay? Now, Adam Kinzinger, Republican on the committee, who's doing a fine job, talked about Ginny Thomas. And he said that initially the committee had some interest, but then more evidence coming. More and more evidence kept coming about Ginny and her involvement and her texts with Arizona, with Sidney Kraken Cuckoo. So the committee would like her to show up voluntarily. Everybody kind of knows that she won't. They prefer not to issue a subpoena, but they will. And let me just say, they should. And Jill Wine-Banks said she's not going to volunteer to appear. She's a right-wing activist. She's involved. She's been paid. There's all these texts and communications, blah, blah, blah. All right, now we're going to move on to Ohio. The Senate race between J.D. Vance, Republican, and Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy, who's fabulous, by the way. The midterms in Ohio. J.D. Vance this past week, believe it or not, came out and very vocally and passionately stated that women and children should remain in violent marital relationships because it's more stable than the women raising children on their own. And you know what just popped into my head right now? I mean, just right this minute, Bill Clinton was raised by a single mother. You'll find a lot of very effective people raised by a single mother. So there's two polls. So one poll was that is very close with them, like 2 points. And then another poll that I read as of July 7th said that Murphy has a wide lead, and I think he still has a wide lead. However, it's a very crucial race. So I asked the runes. I did 2 runes today. Will Tim Murphy win Senate in Ohio against J.D. Vance? So the first rune I got was the Rune of Partnership. And these are the new bags of runes, so they're really nice. They really show up. That is Partnership. Partnership only has one position. It's the upright, and it means that partnership at some form is at hand. I'd like to think it's Murphy's partnership with the Senate that keeps on going. But it does say in the runes that it's about union with the higher self. And of course, Chris Murphy, if you've listened to him or watched him, he really is about the higher self. This rune also is called Gigo, G-E-G-O. I did cover it in my Patreon already. It has no reverse, always operates in the upright, and it is the gift of freedom, which flow all other gifts. So it's a really good one to start out with. Then I got defense, avertive powers, upright. That's defense in the correct position. It says, fund the power to avert blockage. And that would be from Vance. That would be from anybody counting the votes during the midterms. Fund the power to avert blockage. And then we develop an aversion to the conduct that creates stress in our lives. Chris Murphy doesn't need the stress. It's coming. But it says patience is advised. Even if there's a delay, it may prove beneficial. So there might be a count delay of some kind because there's shenanigans, that it's okay. So if there is a delay regarding the counts, it's going to be okay. And then the final was initiation. Initiation. Something hidden. That's what it talks about. Something hidden. It's a rune of mystery. It suggests powerful forces are at hand. On the side of being human, the rune is symbolized by the flight of the eagle, soaring free from entanglements, lifting above the endless ebb and flow of ordinary life, and maybe bull that we've been watching. Murphy will be tested, all right? So just know that. There can be a form of death, and runes will talk about this, and rarely is it literal, but that it has to do with the renewal of spirit. So after Senator Murphy goes through whatever somersaults he's going to be put through, and he wins, and he remains in the Senate, there will be a renewal of his spirit, okay? That's what I want to say. Then the second set of runes that I used was Georgia's Fani Willis, who is conducting this very serious investigation and has formed the grand jury in Georgia about the election extortion, obstruction, and the false electors. Now, what I asked was this: Will Fani Willis charge racketeering? Will she lead with racketeering charges? That was specific. So here we go. I got the rune of disruption. I got the rune of disruption on this one. And it says, it's a shakeup. Change, freedom, invention are all involved with this rune. And I'm thinking, well, racketeering is like a whole new level, right? So change, freedom, invention. It talks about a need to break free. And of course, coming up with racketeering charges breaks identification because it's going to be like this first one. But this is actually a bit out of her control because of the disruption. This is called the Great Awakener. But take heart. At the end of this reading, I have a sense that she might have a difficulty with the racketeering charge itself, or charges themselves. But she is going to be successful, okay? Now, I love the idea of racketeering charges, and what little I know, it seems appropriate, but we don't know criminal law. We don't know racketeering law. Maybe you do, I don't. So let me just say that. So then the movement rune in the reversed position, all right? So logically, correctly, it says movement that appears to be blocked. So this is what I'm talking about. What you are doing may not be timely or appropriate right now, okay? Your opportunity may be to avoid the action, meaning racketeering. I don't know if it would be credible or okay, but I just had this flash of the DOJ contacting her and said, we're going to take care of racketeering. You don't need to go there. But that was just something that flew into my ears, so we'll see. Then the final rune, which is so fascinating and ominous, is the Blank Rune. There's nothing on it. Either side, nothing. It's unknowable. That's what it's called, unknowable. So the blank is the end and it's the beginning. Don't you love that? And it can portend a death, meaning it could interrupt her agenda a little bit. It won't end it. That's what I do want you to know. So the death can be symbolic, as always. Fertile dreams are also held within the blankness. And it calls for an act of courage, and certainly it would, to bring racketeering against, you know, Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and everybody that was involved with the Georgia and the phone calls and the mafia-like obstruction and threats. But it's a test of faith. So it teaches us the depths of old karma, shift and evolve. But you know what? I pulled a clarifier because this was just a little bit vague. It's the rune of growth. It's called Berkana. Clarifier. So it may occur in affairs of the world, or it may occur in personal relationship. But Berkana leads to blossoming and ripening. It requires approaching things deeply and with a lot of awareness, which that's certainly the implication I get from Fani Willis, that she's on her game. Now, what I want you to know is there will be charges. If not RICO, there will be charges. So don't let that discourage you if RICO doesn't go through. Now, Donald Trump is going to Washington for the first time since he left, and he's going to sort of remind everybody that he ran the town. His numbers are going down. Fox acknowledged that, and Trump had a fit, and that was like 2 nights ago. Now, these are the words of President Biden, right, like 2 days ago or yesterday. He said, for 3 hours, the defeated former president of the United States watched it all happen as he sat in the comfort of a private dining room next to the Oval Office, While he was doing that, brave law enforcement officers were subject to medieval hell for 3 hours. They were dripping in blood and surrounded by carnage, face to face with crazed mob who believes the lies of the defeated president. And then he just went on to say, you can't be pro-insurrection and pro-cop at the same time. You can't be pro-democracy. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-American. So he said it, and he said it forcefully. The article did say Trump is returning to D.C. as part of the groundwork for his next presidential campaign, if indeed he does run. Right now he's threatening. It isn't official. The whole idea is for Trump to look and act like a shadow president. And, you know, that's his shtick. And as I always say, he's not going to be the next president, okay? He's not. We just have to watch and see how this is going to, you know, go. President Biden, when he made these remarks, wanted to make sure that the treasonous president will not be able to run from the Capitol attack. So he was bringing it back to what he did. That was not a random thing that President Biden did. It was timely and it was pointed. All right, now we're getting to good evidence. And I saw something on YouTube, a real video of a real man standing outside of a grocery store, and he was Latin, Hispanic. He had an accent. He was maybe in his mid to late 30s, clean cut, and he was standing outside the grocery store, and an older gentleman came out with a cart of food, and he asked the gentleman if he could give him some food because he was very hungry. And the man like opened up his wallet and said, you know, I don't have much cash. And the Hispanic man said, no, I just really need food because I'm so hungry. And he picked up the bag of crackers or something lightly, not like stealing them, lightly, and said, like this. And the older man said, well, then take the bag of crackers because you're hungry. Now, when the Hispanic man first showed up, an older woman, kind of like a Karen, probably, I'm going to say in her mid to late 60s, came out and she started harassing the Hispanic man. Like he was lazy and he was asking for handouts and she was very critical. And then she was interrupted by the gentleman that came out and gave the man a bag of food. So when the gentleman gave the Hispanic man a bag of food because he was hungry, the Hispanic man put the bag of food back in his cart, dropped it back in his cart. And he said, well, sir, what I'm really doing today is I'm doing a social experiment. And I'm acknowledging the people that were willing to give me a little food because I said I was hungry. I am paying for the groceries. So the man pulls out a wad of cash. I don't mean like a giant wad, but just some cash, and gives him whatever, like $40 or whatever he paid. And the man was just, I just wanted to help you because you were hungry. And he said, I know, sir. I know, sir, and I thank you very much. You proved something. And then the woman watched it, and she tried to get money from the Hispanic. Well, wait a minute. I'm on a fixed income. I can barely afford these. He said, yes, but you were mean to me. No, I just wondered why you were He said, no, madam, you were mean to me and you refused to give me any food for my hunger. And she ended up like flat out asking him for some of his money. And he said, no, I'm very sorry. She said, you lied. He said, yeah, because this is a social experiment. And I wanted to see who was kind. I just thought this guy was brilliant. For the man who gave him some food, that was good evidence. And for the man who committed, or not committed, did the social experiment, it was good evidence of mankind. And then she was just evidence of the mass psychosis. that's going on out there. So that's my share. I actually have a list, but I don't have time, and we're at the end of it. We're at the end of it, people. I will be back. Here's quotes. Here's one quote by Plato, philosopher Plato. He said, if you don't take an interest in the affairs of your government, you are doomed to live under the rule of fools. Everything old is new again, right? Everything old is new again. And then a reminder to my Patreon members that I'll be doing a juicy Patreon video tomorrow with more fun stories. So thank you. Make it good. I'll be back at the end of the week. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.